So we talked about basics of RES-LAT. We'll talk about the entry points as in functions which are available in RES-LAT, and then I'll talk about the authentication. How do you authenticate? And then we'll take an example to understand it completely. So can you explain what is RES-LAT versus REST API? Right. So REST API is a method where you integrate with Netsuite, so Netsuite supports integration or connection using REST APIs, swap APIs. So REST APIs is one of those methods. Now RES-LAT is a script type which enables us to connect or integrate with Netsuite, or integrate Netsuite with any application using REST APIs. So, as I was telling you guys on our previous session, right, that Netsuite has recently introduced connecting to objects directly using REST APIs. Earlier, it was primarily using RES-LATs. You could not integrate or connect or access any object data directly. It was through RES-LAT only. So you call a RES-LAT and then from RES-LAT you can do whatever operation is needed, because it's a script type which is there in Netsuite itself. So that's when RES-LAT comes into picture. It could be anything like performing a search in Netsuite, creating a data, so it could be getting some information, creating some records in Netsuite, or maybe updating some records in Netsuite. Or it supports delete operation as well. So if you want to delete something in Netsuite that is also supported using RES-LAT, RES-LAT is nothing but a script type, which enables us to integrate with Netsuite using REST API. Okay, so you mentioned in the past or recently. You know, Netsuite, introduced using REST APIs with the RES-LATs right in the past, was only RES-LATs. So how do you connect just using RES-LAT with other applications? So the connection part. I will explain, so what you need to do. When you create a RES-LAT script and deploy it in Netsuite, you'll get a URL similar to what we have in SuiteLit. So you'll get that URL, which is an external URL. You share it with the third-party application that they have to call. So anything like even if you connect through SOAP API, you will have to call it object URL, similar to that you call the RES-LAT URL. Then you have to share the authentication details, the token details and everything. And using all that, like using the URL token details, these two things, combination of these things, they will be able to access that RES-LAT. They will be able to call it. So, as soon as they call it, the RES-LAT script will trigger and it will start executing in Netsuite. Once the execution starts, whatever logic we have written within RES-LAT, it will execute and it will return. Return is always in JSON format, so you return in JSON format, whatever response is required. Let's say, if you are performing a delete operation, so delete it will trigger. You delete the record and then your response could be a message or an ID or anything. If you're creating a record, you give the responses and the record which is generated, so you provide the ID and response. Like, this is the new record which is generated. So it could be anything based on the entry point or based on the function you're calling. Okay, and then the same response is, you capture it or you use it in the external application. So as soon as you get a response back, you read it or you pass through it, and then you take the reaction in the other application. Okay, so RES-LAT can It supports only JSON, or it does support XML too. I have seen JSON only as a response. Okay, I can. I mean, even if you see here, as far as I remember it is only JSON, but I can, quick check and confirm that part as well. But as far as I know, I've seen only JSON. Right, but if it is XML, then if JSON is the only supporting language, then what would we use if we use XML? No, I mean, SOAP API is anyway an option. So, SOAP APIs can be used within RES-LAT. No, I mean when I'm saying SOAP API. You integrate Netsuite with SOAP API instead of REST APIs, correct? Okay, if you have to put an XML and any additional thing, but I think I can quickly check. If yeah, I think it is always. I've always seen it as a JSON, only whenever we return it in JSON. Yeah, I can This is one thing I can check additionally if you come to Angular sure. So I'll share that additional information with you tomorrow. Okay. Okay, so now coming to the functions, or the entry points, which RES-LAT support. There are 4 where we have get, delete, put and post. Get is. This is. I think this is very similar or very clear, based on any API call, right? So if you want to retrieve some information, get. If you want to create a record, put. If you want to update a record, which is post. And if you want to delete a record, then you have to go with delete entry point. So what does put do? Insert. Insert, okay, post is to create. Post is to update. Oh, update post is to update, okay. But mostly used. One is post. I mean you can, if there is any, if you're not actually creating a recorder, you're just putting performing a search and all. So mostly, the one which is mostly used is post. Okay, so first it reads, and then it reads it. Okay, so I can open one of these functions, define the function and get request to send to the RES-LAT. HTTP response body is returned. Returns string and object. It is okay. So it does allow support XML also. I can see it here. So returns an object when a request content type is JSON or XML, both. Okay, returns a request. This returns a string when this context request is plain text and returns an object which is a JSON object if it is JSON or XML. So the response is anyways JSON only. It accepts JSON and XML, both, but it returns an object which is in JSON format, if your request is in XML or JSON, any one of those. So this is about get. Similarly, we have put post and delete. Let me open post. Same thing when you have a post request, when you're sending a post request from. When you're calling a post request. That's when this particular function will trigger. It also has the same parameter where you have request body. So we'll see one example. But before that, let's talk about authentication. So let authentication is one which is widely used is token-based authentication. What do? You generate tokens and then share the token details with the third-party application, whoever is, managing it, admin or the developer who's working on that particular integration. You share the token details with them and then they can access that particular REST-LAT. So how to generate a token is. You can have all that information here, yeah. Token-based authentication, issue token and revoke token. REST services for token-based authentication.